I was just a girl when he left me with a secret growing inside me. But I never imagined history would repeat itself, this time, with my own daughter. I can still smell the summer air, thick with humidity and the scent of cut grass. I was 17, and the world felt small. My small hometown, where everyone knew your business before you did, was not where I imagined my life would unfold. I had dreams of escaping, of becoming someone important, something more than just a high school girl stuck in the same routine, doing the same thing, day in and day out. That's when he came into my life, Daniel. I remember how he looked the first time I saw him. He was confident, with the kind of charm that made everyone around him feel like they were the most important person in the world. He was tall, dark, and handsome, everything I thought I needed. He was older, too, 25 to my 17, but that difference never mattered to me. He made me feel seen, special. And at that time, that was all I needed. It didn't take long for me to fall for him. He swept me off my feet with sweet words and empty promises. He said he loved me, that I was beautiful, that we were destined for something bigger than this small town. And like a fool, I believed him. I gave him everything, my heart, my trust, my body. But in the end, all he gave me was a memory, a broken heart, and a secret that would haunt me for years to come. The day I found out I was pregnant is a blur, a haze of disbelief and panic. I had taken the test over and over, each time hoping it would somehow come back negative. But it didn't. And in that moment, I knew my life had changed forever. There was no turning back. I was going to be a mother, and the father, Daniel, was nowhere to be found. He'd disappeared, leaving me with nothing but a promise that I would never see him again. I remember sitting in my bedroom, staring at the little pink line on the test. It felt like the room was closing in on me. I had no idea what to do, who to turn to. My parents? They would never understand. They were too wrapped up in their own lives to see me for who I was. I was just another girl in their house, not someone who mattered enough to care about what I was going through. So, I kept the secret to myself. The next few months were a blur. I tried to act like everything was normal, but how could it be? My body was changing, and I was growing more and more terrified with each passing day. I had no plan. No support. And as much as I tried to keep my head above water, the reality of being a teenage mother began to sink in. And then came the day when I had to tell my parents. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my hands shaking as I told them. My mother's face was a mask of disbelief, her eyes wide with shock. My father, on the other hand, was silent. I couldn't read him, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. I was just a kid. I wasn't supposed to be here. This wasn't the future he'd planned for me. "What were you thinking?" my mother asked, her voice full of anger and hurt. I didn't have an answer for her. How could I? I had fallen for someone who wasn't worth it, who left me without a second thought. But I couldn't tell her that. I couldn't explain the pain of being abandoned by the one person I thought I could trust. And then, there was the decision. The hardest decision I would ever make. I could have kept the baby, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared for the life that awaited me. So, I made the choice to give up my child. I walked into that clinic, my heart breaking with each step. I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep the secret anymore. But it didn't make the decision any easier. And every day after, I questioned if I had done the right thing. Years passed. I tried to move on, tried to forget about Daniel and the pain he caused me. I built a life for myself, a life without him in it. I worked hard, held my head high, and pretended that I had it all together. But the truth was, I was still broken. I carried that secret with me, tucked deep inside where no one could see it. I tried to bury it, but it would never stay buried. The past had a way of coming back, especially when I least expected it. And then came Emily. When I first found out I was pregnant with her, I was terrified. I wasn't ready to be a mother again, not after everything I had gone through. But when I held her in my arms for the first time, I knew I had made the right choice. She was my world, my reason for waking up each day. I promised myself that I would never let her feel the pain I had felt. I would protect her from everything, from the mistakes I had made, from the heartbreak I had suffered. But as much as I tried to shield her, I couldn't protect her from the world. She was growing up, becoming her own person, and I couldn't control everything. And that's when I began to notice something. A change in her. A look in her eyes that reminded me so much of myself at her age. She was looking for something, someone to fill the emptiness she felt inside. I had seen that look before, in the mirror, when I was her age. And then it hit me. The same cycle that had happened to me, the same cycle of longing and heartache, was happening again. One evening, Emily came home from school, her eyes red and swollen. She didn't speak, didn't say a word as she handed me a small white stick. The pregnancy test. The same test I had held at her age. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stood there, staring at the test, feeling everything around me crumble. My worst fear had come true. Emily was pregnant. Mom, her voice was barely a whisper, full of fear and uncertainty. I don't know what to do. I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed me off. She was 17, and I knew how she felt. She wanted someone to pay attention to her, to validate her, to make her feel important. And Daniel? He was more than willing to give her that. He was older, successful, and seemed to have it all. The kind of man who could make any young girl feel like the center of the universe. I knew the type. I had been that young girl once. And I had paid the price. A week went by, and the texts turned into phone calls. Then came the gifts. Fancy things, bracelets, necklaces, tickets to concerts. Emily was thrilled. She didn't see the manipulation behind the generosity. She didn't understand the game he was playing. He had been so careful, so subtle, but I could see it. I knew exactly what he was doing. I spent hours pacing the house, debating whether I should confront him. Should I warn her? Should I tell Emily everything? Should I expose the past and destroy the illusion she had built around him? But could I really do that? Could I shatter the dream she was chasing? Could I tear down the man she was beginning to believe was the perfect father figure? One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, I saw Emily's name flash across my phone screen. It was him again. I hesitated for a moment before I answered. Hello? I said, my voice colder than I intended. Sarah? Daniel's voice crackled through the phone, familiar yet distant. I hadn't heard it in so long, and yet it was like no time had passed. It's been a while. I was hoping we could catch up. I felt a wave of nausea sweep over me. I wanted to hang up. To throw the phone across the room and pretend I had never heard his voice again. But instead, I forced myself to speak. Why are you texting my daughter, Daniel? There was a pause on the other end, and for a second, I thought he might hang up. Look, Sarah, I know things ended badly between us. I never meant to hurt you. But Emily's a great girl, and she's been asking about me. I took a deep breath, fighting the anger bubbling up inside me. She doesn't know about you. She doesn't know the truth. There was another pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind as he tried to figure out what I meant. Finally, he spoke, his tone softer now. I didn't know it was such a big deal. I just wanted to reach out. I never meant to cause any harm. I wanted to scream. To tell him that reaching out to Emily was the same as reaching into my chest and twisting my heart all over again. But I didn't. Instead, I pressed my lips together and asked the question I had been too scared to ask for years. Why did you leave me, Daniel? Why did you disappear without a word? There was silence for a long moment before he answered. I was scared, Sarah. I wasn't ready. I was young, and I didn't know what I was doing. I thought running away was the answer. Running away, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the words. You ran away, and I was left to clean up your mess. I was left to raise a child alone. And now you come back into my daughter's life like it's nothing? He sighed, his voice tinged with regret. I never wanted to hurt you. I've thought about you. About what we had. And I can't go back and fix it. I want to be there for her. The audacity. The arrogance of it all. It's too late for that, Daniel. You can't just pick up where you left off. You don't get to play the father now. Not after what you did. I heard him take a deep breath. I understand that you're angry. But I'm here now, and I want to make things right. I want to be part of her life. The phone call ended with no resolution. I was left staring at the screen, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to protect Emily, to shield her from the man who had hurt me so badly. But another part of me, a part one hated, wanted her to experience everything I had, to see Daniel for who he truly was. Maybe she needed to see him with her own eyes before she could understand. The next few days felt like a ticking time bomb. I watched Emily closely, unable to shake the feeling that I was losing her, that she was slipping away from me and into the arms of a man who could never give her the love and security she deserved. I knew that if I didn't do something soon, if I didn't step in and stop this, Emily would end up like me, broken, betrayed, and left to pick up the pieces. But how could I stop her from making the same mistakes? How could I protect her from the ghost of the past that haunted us both? The morning Emily came to me with tears in her eyes, I knew. I had known it was coming, yet somehow, when it happened, I was completely unprepared. She stood in the doorway, holding that small white stick, trembling in her hands as if it might slip from her grip at any moment. Mom, her voice was soft, barely a whisper. I don't know what to do. I froze. My mind scrambled to find the words, to say something that would make sense of this moment. But the truth was, I couldn't. I couldn't make sense of it. How could I? The last thing I wanted to hear, the last thing I ever expected, was my daughter saying those words to me. I glanced down at the pregnancy test she was holding. The faint pink line was unmistakable. The line that would change everything. The line that would alter the course of her life forever. I felt the blood drain from my face, and my breath caught in my throat. I should have known. How could I have missed the signs? The secrecy, the late nights, the messages. She had been so swept up in it, in him, Daniel. But I couldn't bring myself to admit it. Not yet. I wanted to deny it, to push it all away, but deep down, I knew who the father was. I had seen the way Emily looked at him, the way she talked about him. I had seen the same vulnerability in her eyes that I had once seen in my own. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. Emily, we need to talk, I said, my voice sounding distant, even to my own ears. She nodded, stepping into the room and sitting down on the bed beside me. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I could see it all in her eyes, the fear, the shame, the uncertainty. She was scared, and I could see it in every part of her. I put my arm around her, holding her tightly, though I was barely holding it together myself. Sweetheart, tell me what happened. Her words came out in a rush. I didn't know what I was doing, Mom. I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought it was love. Her voice broke on the last word, and I could hear the desperation in her tone. But now everything's a mess. And I don't know what to do. I'm not ready for this. I'm just not ready. I felt the sting in my chest, like a knife twisting in my heart. I wanted to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay, but I knew it wouldn't be. I knew the reality of what she was facing. I had been there. I had felt that same fear when I was her age. Only, I had no one to turn to. I had been alone, and now my daughter was here, asking for help, and all I could do was hold her and wonder if I had failed her somehow. Emily, I began, choosing my words carefully, this isn't the end of the world. It's not an easy situation, but we'll figure this out together. I knew it wasn't enough to just say that. I knew how much it would hurt. But I had to be strong for her. I had to be the mother she needed me to be. Do you know who the father is? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I had to hear her say it. She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. It's Daniel, she whispered. I didn't say anything at first. The silence between us felt thick, heavy with the weight of the truth. The name that I had tried so hard to avoid. The man who had hurt me so deeply. The man who had walked away and left me to deal with the consequences of our mistakes. And now he was back. Not only in my life, but in Emily's as well. I didn't know what to feel. Anger? Fear? A deep, unshakable sadness? All of it surged inside me at once, but I didn't let it show. I couldn't. Not yet. I had to be the calm in the storm. I had to protect Emily from the storm that was coming, and I had to be the one to guide her through it. I know this is hard, I said, my voice soft, though every word felt like a weight on my chest. But we're going to get through this. You're not alone. We're going to figure it out, okay? She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. What am I supposed to do now? I don't know what to tell him, or how to even talk to him. I don't know how to fix this, Mom. I gently wiped the tears from her face, my heart breaking for her. I wanted to protect her from everything. I wanted to take this burden from her and carry it myself. But I couldn't. All I could do was hold her, and try to be the strength she needed. First things first, I said, we need to talk to Daniel. You can't do this alone, Emily. You need to know the truth. You need to hear it from him. But whatever happens, I want you to remember something. You are not to blame for this. You were looking for love. And sometimes, people who aren't ready to give it, show up pretending to be something they're not. She nodded, though I could see the doubt in her eyes. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that he was someone who could help her, someone who could fix things. But I knew, deep down, that Daniel wasn't the answer. He never had been. I didn't want to tell her that. I didn't want to ruin her hope. But she needed to know the truth about him. She needed to understand the man who had come into her life with empty promises, just like he had done to me. He was a ghost, a shadow of who he claimed to be, and if Emily wasn't careful, she would find herself caught in the same trap that had ensnared me all those years ago. Do you want me to call him? I asked softly. Emily nodded. Yes. I think I need to hear it from him. I need to know what he's going to do. I took a deep breath. The moment was here. It was time to face him. The man who had left me. The man who had ruined my life. And now, he was back, about to ruin my daughter's. But I couldn't let that happen. Not again. I grabbed my phone, my hand trembling slightly as I dialed his number. I had no idea what I was going to say, but I had to say something. I had to confront him. For Emily's sake. For my own sake. The phone rang twice before he answered. Sarah? I wanted to yell. I wanted to scream at him, ask him why he was doing this. But instead, I just said, we need to talk. About Emily. There was a pause. I could almost hear him thinking, processing the situation. I don't understand, he said. What's going on? She's pregnant, Daniel, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. And you need to be a part of this. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I knew he wasn't expecting this. I knew he hadn't planned for it. But it didn't matter. It was time for him to face the truth, just as I had to so many years ago. First of all, thank you for watching and diving into this emotional roller coaster with me. Your support means everything. If this story has gripped you, if you felt every heartbreak, every twist, then you need to see what happens next. Because trust me. Part 2? It's going to blow your mind. Who is this mysterious man at the door? What dark secret is he hiding about Emily's past? Is Daniel really gone for good, or is this just the beginning of his games? Will Emily's decision to keep the baby destroy her future, or save them all? Don't miss part 2. This is just the start of the storm, and you do not want to miss what happens next. Tap that subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when part 2 drops. Because trust me, you'll be screaming at your screen. Like, comment, and tell me below. Who do you think is at the door? Do you think Emily should keep the baby? What's the one thing you're dying to see in part 2? Subscribe now. Or risk never knowing the truth. Stay tuned. Part 2 is coming soon. And it's juicier than you think.